Yep.
Yeah, man. No.
Nope.
No.
Full. Good.
Half full.
Test, test, test. That sounds great.
There we
Right.
go. Oh, hey.
Yes. We'll see.
Hello. Can everyone hear me?
How about myself? Got to get my heart rate on this one.
Awesome. Well, we'll get started. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Welcome to the Entrepreneurship Speaker Series, the first one of 2020. So welcome everybody. And the crowd goes wild. Thank you all for coming. So for those of you who don't know, the Entrepreneurship Speaker Series is an opportunity for entrepreneurs who are maybe thinking about making the jump or who are just getting started to hear from other entrepreneurs who have gone through the same journey themselves, and they might be able to share some similar hurdles and kind of walk you through some of the things that they didn't work, so you can learn from their advice and their mistakes. And it's made possible because of Rolf and Mark Hogan, and they're some of the original entrepreneurs here in Whitehorse. They helped build Whitehorse, and they build off the legacy of First Nations in the territory, who are Yukon's original entrepreneurs. And so there's a lot of experience that has led to these events, and so we're happy to connect you with some entrepreneurs. So we are going to be taking some pictures and stuff to share on social media. So if you don't want to be in a picture, you can just talk to Victoria over here, and then you can let her know at the end, and then she'll make sure that your photos aren't shared. And then other than that, we can jump right in, and we can welcome Eddie and Andrew from the Wayfarer Oyster House. And the crowd goes wild again. So thank you both for joining us. And I guess as we get started, can you just tell us your backgrounds and what kind of brought you to the restaurant food industry?
First of all, I'd like to also say that the only reason we're here right now is because there's a bunch of other people at the restaurant working it right now. One of which is our other business partner who's very important to this whole process. His name is Brian, and he's amazing.
No. No one comes to see us. They come to eat his food.
Yes.
I guess I left Newfoundland in 2001 and moved to Iqaluit, moved to Frobisher Bay to teach at the college up there, which may also be aspiring to be a university like Yukon College is in the process of doing. Fast forward a few years later, and this fine gentleman rolled into town, and he can probably explain how we met.
We don't need to go that much detail, but no, my father lived there for a while. He was doing some cooking as well, and the Elks Club there is a dart night, and I met Eddie over a game of darts, and I'll leave it at that.
Yes. So fast forward, my wife and I moved here in 2013, and Andrew moved here a year later with his now wife, and was doing a few jobs around town. One of them actually was with Yukon Brewing for a little while.
That's what it is.
And he started shucking some oysters. And that led to getting some kind of catering gigs and things that were going on. And unbeknownst to him, I kind of inserted myself into that world with some smoked fish and some pickles. And from there, Brian was kind of getting wind that we were at a few other places in town, cocktail bars, breweries, bar mitzvahs, funerals, whatever. We'd show up, you pay us, we chuck oysters. And he really wanted to be a part of that.
It was actually, well, Jade, you brought us up for an event at Coast Space when you guys first cracked that door open. That was Brian's first. I mean, Brian kept following us around. He was like, "I want to shuck," and I was like, "Well, bring a knife and show up." And actually, a lot of people around town are always kind of interested because every time you bring oysters out, there's always somebody. Actually, no one did it tonight though. But usually, there's always somebody who's like, "I'm from New Brunswick." These oysters, and then they show interest. And they're like, I want to go shuck, and I was like, "Yeah, bring a knife. You can come and help out." No one ever did. He was the first one to do it. And actually, that was an event. What, 4 years ago now?
Probably.
So
Brian, lifelong love of cooking, kind of grew up in it with, Chinese Canadian kid, grew up in the parents' industry, and he kind of pushed us a little more to consider the idea of doing something like opening a restaurant. We did a couple of pop-up restaurants at Bake Cafe, one at, I think it was called Headwaters or something at one point, a coffee shop back at the bottom of the hill there.
yeah, Sophia Fontaine is.
We looked around town, we weren't in a rush, and eventually found a space that worked for us. And took about double the time to get it open than we thought, which seems to be the norm. And 14 months later, here we are.
And so you have the full space, but one of the things, you know, when you're thinking oysters, it's not the first thing that comes to mind when you're in Whitehorse, Yukon. So why oysters specifically?
So I mean, my background is like more so from 15 years old, just working in kitchens, working as a dishwasher through to many different positions, making your bones, as one late Anthony Bourdain used to call it. But yeah, I used to get hit in the face with chicken breasts, and I used to get hit in the face with T-bone steaks. I had guys put wasabi in my ear, behind my neck, and everything, like making your own bones. So
it was the 90s. It was different.
Yeah. So then, after a long while, then this is after Iqaluit, I moved down to Ottawa, and I was looking for a job because I was going to school in Carleton there, leading a thriving life of catering. I like to call it pirating or thieving, really. And I started a bachelor's degree in human rights at Carleton University. But glad I did, because I was looking for the bus I was on broke down, and right up front was a place called in Ottawa at all, or familiar with it, but they were a fish supply store just off the highway on Kent Street. They were 430 Bank Street location. Now they're on Elgin, and they have the Elmdale Oyster House and Tavern. So there's about 4 different locations, and those guys are all from it's like a timeline of like a grandfather kind of thing of Roddy's Oyster House in Toronto. They used to all work for them, and then they kind of spread off, and myself and us, we're kind of only one of those sprouts off in Walesville. There's other guys who are from Roddy's in Walesville who are in Niagara region, Vancouver, Victoria. They've taken the skill of kind of just oysters and how it's presented, how we present it. Just a little, I mean, like this is a little, actually this is exactly how we do it, really. It's just, or right up there in front of the bar with you, it's kind of, you're just getting that experience. So that's kind of what pulled me into the idea of actually maybe I could actually decide or drag myself into doing something that's more like a business in the restaurant industry, because ever since I left Iqaluit to go to Ottawa, I realized that I should never go into this industry at all, because it's volatile, the hours are nuts, it's not conducive to family life and all that kind of stuff. But then having the oyster knowledge and starting catering up here, and then having some support, really kind of kicked my ass, I guess, into kind of getting, maybe taking a bit on. Did I want to open a 50-seat restaurant? No. But here we are.
And I mean, oysters are pretty hardy. We've got a photo above the bar from 1898 on Front Street in Dawson City, and the sign says cigars and oysters 5 cents. So they were coming up a pass 125 years ago. So this isn't new here. Thanks to Joe and Air North and competition with Air Canada, we basically getting product as fast as anyone in Toronto is getting it.
Yeah.
If anything, we're closer to the ocean.
For sure.
Not a lot of oysters in the Great Lakes that I'm aware of. So there's a perception that, oh my God, you're so far away. But I got a photo this morning from one of our suppliers who was harvesting on Vancouver Island at low tide at 3 a.m. And they're on the plane tonight for us to have them tomorrow. So that's about as good as you can do.
And the whole oysters are landlocked. Because all the places that I know that are some of the best oyster bars. I mean, there's oyster bars that are all great wherever you're from, coast to coast. But I find that most people kind of that are in inland, kind of landlocked areas appreciate the seafood more, because maybe they're not from, say, coastal area like Newfoundland. If you go and try and say, if I went to Eddie's Brothers Cottage at Kings Point, Newfoundland, and said, let's go get some lobster, everyone would be like, you're insane, I don't want to eat lobster. Like, we eat it all the time. It's like, it's how meat pies and stuff. But yeah, when you're landlocked, people kind of, it's treated more like a delicacy, and people will pay the dollars for it. So that's, I guess that's the business model it plays.
As you were scaling up the catering business, then when did the switch finally come on where it was like, we can actually do the restaurant thing? Like, you didn't just do the catering thing once and decide, boom, next step restaurant. Like, what was the clicking moment?
I think when we started doing the pop-ups at Bay Cafe, where we set it was a price fix, we set a ticket. Brian would, with Andrew and I, tearing him down from where he wanted the menu to where he wanted the menu, and selling those out in advance, and people coming and giving us, honest feedback, what didn't work, and people we trust in town. That, we're a pretty middle class town, we're an educated town. I can put an old hat on and talk about, highest rated post-secondary education per capita in Canada, 17 governments. We're a well-heeled, middle class traveling community. people go to restaurants, they have experiences, be it in Guatemala, Norway, or Vancouver Island, and we saw that what we were producing, people were talking about it, coming back for it. That kind of led us with, basically, I'm 42, Brian will be 30, I think, this year.
Yeah.
So you hook your trailer to the young guy. Yeah. It's funny, he's in the middle. You get your reins on the young guy and let him ride it in.
Yeah, it was just kind of seeing that he was really eager and keen, and after spending many years over the heat or over a grill myself, I was like, sure, you want to, let's go for it, but I can assist in other areas of like, some overseeing, but as far as like kind of getting into, I have no interest.
We dragged him into this. That's basically what he's trying to say.
But it's a good question and interesting too, because as you're doing the catering thing, you're looking at the restaurant now seriously, you're obviously 3 partners. What are the decisions like, and what's the process like between the 3? Who has the final say? What are those discussions like?
This is the benefit of having 3.
Yes. Get in business with odd numbers. There's never a tie.
Always a tie. Well, there's always a tie right here with 3. I don't know, I think everyone just kind of had brought something different to the table. And we weren't really going to settle on any space. We wanted a space, but we just had the right thing had to come up. And when we all kind of agreed on it, because a lot of places came up, and then we were talking over it.
We're probably 2 years started from back of the napkin kind of business plan to having something
that's still our business.
Yeah, not far off. Having something that you could tailor based on the size and space. And you wanted proximity to downtown, proximity to Main Street. Then it was about lease, size, renos, is a landlord a jerk? Just all these things that you want to factor in. And so we weren't in a rush. At that point we all had other careers, and which helps in this town to take the leap when the square foot rate is sometimes it's the same as being in Kelowna.
Yeah. So you found the space at the end of Main Street, 6098, I think it is,
right.
Main Street. So why that space finally, and then can you also talk about, because a lot of people say it's sometimes too far off of the main drag.
No, I mean I'm the worst person to have that happen, because I'm snotty and I'm quick and I don't have time for it most of the time. I'm not the best person to be shoved out there in the crowd, but because I'll always say like, well, where do you live? Like, well, I live in Riverdale, or I live in Whistle Bend. And it's like, how much farther are you going to? Like, where would you rather go eat? It's like, well, whatever restaurant's closer here, and you kind of go, all right, well, it's another 4 or 5 minutes, like walk or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, whatever. And it's people have their, that's you're going to be met with that all the time. It's like, you're not this, you're not that, you're not this. No, whether it's not, you're not close enough, or you're not, you don't offer coffee, you don't offer tea. These sorts of things. But you just have to kind of go that this is the vision. It just goes along with it. Like, you don't want to make the walk, don't come. I guess. But.
Yeah. The other side of it, I appreciate it. This is what I like. Andrew's 3 days into a cold and got out of bed to come here, so this is the reason I love him. The space was blank. We got it. It was a kitchen store. There was industrial carpet glued on the floor. It was just a huge white rectangle. We went in with a growler and a couple bottles of wine and a roll of masking tape, and just talked and walked through what we thought our restaurant should look like. And the kitchen is 2 feet, has 2 feet extra space out where the pass is. The bar is 1 foot out. But from the first night we walked out of that building, it's exactly what we thought it would be. Yeah. And then, building it out and coming through to get that space has really worked out. It heats itself well. There's a huge parking lot. You can park for free and leave your car there all night and not worry about bylaw getting you at 9:02 in the morning, which may or may not have happened to me in the past. Yeah, it's really worked out. I mean, I can hit a 7-iron and be at the Gold Rush. Yeah. It's not that far off the street.
The biggest thing was, working with the people in the building. That they're going to be your biggest interaction over the next, it's your customers and it's your suppliers, business partners, and then who you're doing business with. It's their place. So no matter what you're doing, it's kind of got to be cohesive. It took us a long while to work out the lease, and all in good faith, and we took the time with it. I was a little more antsy. I was like, whatever, but the old bureaucrat over here with many more experience than much more experience than I have, is just like,
Let's pay a lawyer to look at this lease.
and further into those things, and that goes back to like different qualities that everyone come into the fold. So where I could have maybe messed that up quite a bit, you know.
And Andrew and Brian both grew up in the industry. You know, Andrew made his way and got himself to university with it. I did a little bit of that back, you know, at George Street in Newfoundland and at Brew Club, and then I went away and did various avenues of bureaucracy for many, many, many years, 16 or 17 or something like that. My hands start to shake. And you know, Brian being the young guy who grew up in it and being the, you know, because being our Yukoner is still a thing here. So having our partner being from here made a bit of a difference as well. People took us a little more seriously.
Yeah.
It really helped that way. We all brought kind of a different perspective of how to build it out. I had no idea how to deal with the kitchen, but I throw a hell of a party. So I knew how to deal with the bar. I knew how to set it up. I knew where things wanted to be. Andrew would come in and calm me down. He'd be pragmatic, and we just let Brian make food, and
That's the thing.
started that way.
Yeah, you start kind of lofting up, like what do you want it to look like? What do we want? What kind of food do we want to make? Do we need gas? No, like we can get rid of that right away. You can build up to that maybe. Now you're having another conversation with your landlord because it's not there already. Like if it was a kitchen already, then it maybe had it. You can work with that, but it didn't. So that's a lot of it in the install. And then with that, you need a different hood system now. Now you're looking at anywhere between $20,000 to $80,000 worth of a high pressure exhaust with fire suppression systems. This just starts adding up, just starts going up and up and up. And me just kind of being a little bit more simple as like, if we only did what we were doing out of baked or like out of the catering, if we were just doing oysters and doing the food that we were doing and people were enjoying that, if we added booze, then we're actually going somewhere. So what if we could do just a little bit more than that? Then we're not opening up the door without too much, too much baggage.
I think to build on that, there are aspirations. Every time we sit down with Brian, every couple of weeks, the three of us sit down and we have a chat about where we need to go to business, what do we need. He's like, I want whatever type of a bunch of letters and numbers vacuum sealer. That will cost thousands of dollars. Like, well, we made it 14 months. To roll back to, we basically built this ourselves. We did a lot of the work inside of it ourselves. We had a friend who's a contractor do some work. Most of it was paid, some of it was tab as you go. Sometimes we basically built to the capital we could acquire.
Yeah.
No banks are involved.
Because they won't get
interest
involved.
rates. Yeah, well, they wouldn't also because it's an insane industry.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to leverage our houses. We're still married.
Try to.
We kept that out of it and managed to build to the scale we could afford, and then let that kind of go from there, which is important. This is not a cheap town. Money is cheap right now. I'd like to think it's not always going to be cheap, but I thought that 7 years ago when I locked in a mortgage. So that's a separate conversation.
On that though, because you guys had separate careers, you were building up the catering thing and then getting into the restaurant too, and then being able to tap into that income as well. At what point do you say, well, maybe we shouldn't do this, maybe we should keep the stability, or let's just leave now and throw all our eggs in the basket?
Andrew is still with government full time and busting butt and showing up and doing this on the side while his lovely wife has a business as well, some kombucha, and they have a young child, so he's a maniac. I retired from government. I needed a bit of a break from being in a senior management roles across 2 territories for about 10 years. So, it's not a story everyone gets to tell. I was fortunate to have 12 years in Nunavut, making obscene salaries, because that's what you do in Nunavut to live there, and I pulled my pension. I'm living on my future to do my dream now, and I understand that's risky. My wife still likes me when she gets up and goes to work before I get up in the morning, most of the time, if anyone's happy.
No, yeah, and O'Brien became a thing. He was doing the same thing I was doing, but with myself, I can do a lot of it sitting down in my house. I can go over kind of payroll. I can look at procuring other pieces of equipment that we need. I can just sit there and just dial it up. Where he's actually going to be physically in the room, and he has 5 or 6 people he's got to manage in the back to teach recipes and make sure once he has a vision, he's got control. So at some point he was just like, I gotta get out of
Yeah,
it.
he was doing about 110 hours a week for the first 7 months with 2 jobs.
Yeah.
And wasn't as happy affable self towards the end of it.
No, so then he chose to do that, and I mean, like, as Eddie said, there's some sacrifices there, like, he's building his dream now, to kind of, for some other stuff later, but like, myself, I don't foresee myself quitting my job for the next foreseeable future. It's something I need to have to build my family and my, what I want to do, but the restaurant is just that it's really nice to know though, because we have a great team, like Eddie was saying today, because it's our first week back. We just opened last night again from a little bit of a break, and a couple people were sick all of a sudden. I was out of commission. Eddie picks up the pace. Our other employees that are just back have been off for 2.5 weeks or so. They come back.
We also have day jobs.
Some of them also have day jobs as well, and they are also, they're pulling the strings because we're doing something right, because we started the benefits for everybody in October.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so all eggs in one basket. I mean, it's like I think that's essential at some point in time.
Yeah.
I think going the route of being a little bit more, I don't know, because I'm kind of Eastern European. Some decisions as far as like how much money to spend, where and where's it going, it always just, it always complains about my brain. It never turns off in that respect. But at some point in time, once you kind of got to a point where you got some steam rolling, you feel the energy a little bit, and I know we don't really have a business plan at all. So I know that would be crazy, but it's really building to what we can afford and what we have. And then knowing that, hey, the more we give back to our employees, the more happier that they are, and the more we make it easier for them to do their job, then they're going to want to come to work that much more.
Yeah,
That's a hard thing in this industry too.
All of our staff are above minimum wage. Like Andrew said, we got into the Chamber of Commerce benefits program, doing a 50-50 with our staff. It's the food and beverage industry is a tough slog. Tourism in general, if you want to bring it out a bunch. There's a lot of businesses opening, closing, folding. People move jobs. There's always another job. Recruiting and retaining a really good team. That was a bit of an all-star team around town. That we didn't seek them out. They came to us. They saw us at Woodcutters. They saw us at Whittle. They liked us. They trusted us. They took a chance and left things they were doing to come in, and seeing their involvement and appreciation of what we've been doing and how we've been supporting them has really helped this first year. I mean, 40-50% of these go butt up in the first year. Yeah. So, we're still here.
That was my next question.
And a few people liked us, so, well, please do.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Although we're just rambling a lot.
As far as restaurants go.
Try not to swim.
That 2-year mark where restaurants typically, do go bottoms up. How do you keep that growth going and keep that success going? Because you have been very successful.
I have no idea.
Yeah. I think, next question.
Perfect.
No, I appreciate that, but I think basically just keep doing I keep telling him this and he never says it out loud, so I have 60 witnesses. This is great. Keep doing what we're doing. I mean, we came in this with an idea. Everyone has a suggestion. I think the only people that get more advice are brewers. I'm glad you like that. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone wants to give you your opinion. All opinions are valid. It doesn't mean you got to respond to them. We had an idea. This is what we're going to do. We get one person every 2 weeks that's really loathsome about us not having a coffee. Sorry, we don't do it. Well, why don't you do this? So we don't do it. We don't have fries. We don't have a fryer. This is what we do. This is our vision. We do it. People have responded to it. Yeah. Thankfully. Both locally and nationally, now we've had an interesting response. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it.
But yeah, maybe I'll go. Well, not that I have totally no idea, but just keeping it simple. We only have 48 seats in the building. Our capacity is 60. That includes staff. So as long as we
get in so much trouble.
Yeah, we just need to keep 48 people in there at some point in time throughout the week.
I think our highest number is 161 internet.
Yeah, 161 people through, which is a banger of the night. That's a couple of flips, but yeah, just yeah, we can only get into so much if we just kind of keep true to what people are liking of the food. And it's Brian's food. I mean, it's a cool room. It's super neat, and it's a fun little joint. It's comfortable. It's kind of industrial. It's a little rough around the edges. The floor is not level at all. But that's from us.
All the things that look homemade, we built.
Yeah.
All the things that are required to have like structural integrity, we paid somebody to build.
Yeah.
But when you look at the tables, you're like, oh yeah, we did that.
Yeah.
We did that. You look at the wallpaper, that's us. You look at these things, 100%.
But yeah, well, just keep to the model. Yeah.
So on that, the Honor Magazine, or Canada's Honor Magazine, voted Wayfarer one of the top 10 new restaurants in Canada, so congratulations on that. And then one of the things they said in the article about you guys was, on an average night, expensive mountain bikes are locked up outside next to old pickup trucks. I walk in with the avalanche expert and the cookbook author who warmly greet their architect while pointing out the town banker. It's cheers, said in a great way.
I know who every one of those people are. The banker is my banker.
So walk us through the culture that you're trying to build and the accessibility that you have built at Wayfarer.
I think everyone is welcome. You know, you can have your high vis on from being on a construction site all day and sit next to guitar playing Gregory, who happens to wear a suit and have all my investments. You know, everyone's treated the same. Our staff, we didn't have to train them to be a certain way. It's just, you know, they're beholden to have the respect and want to have that you have a good time.
Yeah.
It's not you can wear your suit and tie, you can put your fancy dress on. That's not who we are. You know, this is dressed up since I left government. Really, I don't think I have a suit that fits me anymore, and I have no idea to tie anymore, which is brilliant. It's worked. People have come in, they've experienced something. You know, I hate to say it, but people's like, this could be down south. Like, well, this could be down south, right? It's just a space.
Yeah.
You treat people well, you give them good food, you give them good service, you make sure they get home safe, you ask them to come back, you smile at them, you don't overcharge them, and they tell their friends.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to do that. We're fortunate to be in the bubble of Whitehorse, and maybe have shifted culinary a little bit when we did this. That doesn't hurt. The North is sexy. That doesn't hurt. You know,
Sex.
For the moment, I will call Whitehorse the North. You know, Northern Light, as I like to say it, which I think maybe is where we are. Cranberry chic, as he calls it. It's I mean, we were blown away. We had no idea that Air Canada stuff was happening. We weren't involved. It turns out on the end, I think just people that are traveling, word of mouth, the culinary tourism, the festival that happens in the summer, Yukon Tourism, and their push to get Yukon on the map also helps. I think 6 or 7 of the 12 judges in Canada, or influencers, or whatever the hell you call these people now, had been through the restaurant this year. That's the numbers restaurants in Toronto and Vancouver were getting. So they got us on a good night, or they got us on a regular night, I don't know, but they got us on enough that we were amped to get on the long list of 35. Like, okay, we can use this. We can put that on our menu. This is great. And then we got the call that we're going to be on the short list. We're like, oh crap, like what does this mean? And finally kind of get a chance to digest it and figure out we were number 7, so it wasn't just oh, you're in the North, token number 10, thanks a lot. You know, that's kind of nice to be 7, I don't know, people felt good about it. That's a tide that rises all boats, you know, for culinary tourism, for the opportunities, for people who are like, I'm not going to go to the Yukon, there's nowhere to go. Well, maybe there's just one other reason that they're like, well, I'll give this place a chance, so I'll come to the Woodcutters, I'll come to Polarity, I'll go to wherever I'm going to go. They'll make an effort, or they'll plan their trip and know there are places to spend money and keep money in the territory.
Yeah, I mean the whole their article actually is because I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder out with the whole thing, because I have some other friends who own restaurants in Ottawa, and some of them are pretty staunch about not allowing them in to be on those lists, just because I mean but I disagree, because it's like it's a great model for everybody. They get to get some print for their magazines, and we get to get in a magazine that's just like one of the most widely distributed magazines in Canada. So that's fantastic.
And they don't write negative things in an Air Canada article.
Exactly.
That's trying to sell airline tickets to the
Exactly. But I think the whole package that that the article, I was really surprised and like really impressed and I was really flattered by, was that they kind of captured the whole, what at least I would have liked to brought out in the restaurant, is that where I come from in oyster bars and whatnot, and other kind of shady spots and restaurants and corners of the culinary world, is that there are those places that have some of the best food, but it is just, it's pretty lowbrow, and you can be anyone you want, and everyone's going to treat you the same. And the fact that it's just a little bit off of Main Street, it's in this little kind of old tin-sided building, it used to be a sheet metal shop, and all that kind of stuff. It's got some garage doors that are rickety and let a lot of air in. And then it's the kind of, you come inside where you're not draped in comfy booths, which is still fine, it doesn't matter, but it was kind of funny that they gave us the best interior nod, which I thought was hilarious, because like all the tables, it's like bolted birch, like 3 inches, like
You built them, I sanded them, we
Yeah.
painted them.
yeah, everything.
Tony's Pizza's bottoms on with a song.
Yeah, like it's just, I think that's what comes out of the place, is that there's some sweat there, and it's just, yeah.
But it's also the change in culinary culture and that world in Canada. 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, in Kisatanto, which is like #1 restaurant in Canada, I think right now. You know, they were on the cover of the New York Times food 2 years ago. You know, they had an architect that designed it, and it's beautiful and effortless. You go in and it's like, you feel like you're on freaking drugs when you walk in there. It's just, it doesn't make sense. You come off the street in Chinatown and you're like, what is this place? That's what it was then. Now it's DIY, you know, kind of the whole you construct kind of world.
Craft.
You know, craft. You know, our bar top is a beam from the F.H. Collins demolition that he found, being the guy that he is, and we got it split in two and sanded down, and that became our bar top. You know, that's those kind of little things that make a difference and make it a unique space that I think you could drop anywhere, and it would have a chance.
Those little things kind of get a few of the people. You might have, I've had some older gentlemen, older Yukoner guys who kind of, it's like, you know, the chowder was pretty good, or like, there wasn't too many scallops on that plate. It's like, but this bar is beautiful. or they like the, you know, or
The vinyl, man.
yeah, or the wife who didn't enjoy. This was not hot enough for this one too, you know. But the tile work is beautiful. And it's like, oh, it's wallpaper. Like, whoa, you know. Like, so there's something in there for everybody to kind of. And my favorite thing is the oyster chandelier. I wanted an oyster chandelier in there so badly. And I saw it somewhere in some magazine. And our friend Caitlin Flanagan, she spent many hours, and Miles, her husband, drilling holes into porous oysters with a fan on it so they wouldn't inhale it. And then gold leaf them and put them up, and well, if you see them, you see them. It's my favorite thing there. So. Yeah.
So I'll ask about local businesses, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So if you guys have any questions that are kind of percolating in your mind or stuff that you're curious about, feel free to throw your hand up. But you do support a number and work with a number of local businesses. You got, you know, Summit Kombucha you mentioned on there, Deep Dark Wood, Air North, Alpine Bakery, Yukon Brewing, Yukon Spirits, Cultured, Soul Best, Sarah's Harvest, Elemental Farm, Smoke and Sow. Why reach out to them, and then what do you think it says when you have businesses working together in a town like Whitehorse?
That's you.
It's back to the, you know, growing up on the water, it's the rising tide again. You know, if say I use Alpine as an example, they're making world-class quality bread that are 5 blocks from the restaurant. Why would I get it somewhere else? Why would I wait for GFS to ship something up or to get it from somebody else on a truck when we could go and talk to them and be like, we want your product, we value your product, we want it on the menu, how can we work together? Same thing, you know, I'm a bit of a beer nerd, not a snob. That I will crush a Canadian at the 98 with the best of you. But for me, it's the like going to Yukon Brewing, tasting it. Why are you making it this way? I want to do a cask. Here's some oyster shells. Let's make a stout. Going to Whittlong, making sure they see me a lot. Randomly bringing oysters in and getting the beer they don't give anyone else. You know, it's just like making sure you're kind of keeping eye contact with local businesses, letting them know you're interested. When they come back and it's a price that doesn't work, tell them why. Don't just stop the conversation. Be like, we can't do that because we can get it half price here. And using you will be great, but we can't price that in. And then they can go away and reflect on that and be, well, I'd like to do that, but that's not an option.
Yeah, and there's a lot more we can do as well. I mean, but it's all, some of it's limited, some of the product, like more kind of, we'll say, you know, beef or pork and whatnot, because of the size of our kitchen, and we don't have grills or propane.
My soul for a walk-in.
Yeah, or walk-in as well. So we were working with a couple of lowboy. That's a small 2-door and like a couple of freezers upstairs, and a 3-door kind of.
I have almost as much fridge space in my house as we have in the restaurant.
Oh, well, we got a little more.
Good, I'm close.
But yeah, so that kind of limits us there. So we would probably get into more of that if we had the space and whatnot. But we don't. I mean, even other things too is like, well, the shells. Everyone's always asking us, what do you do with the shells? And I've been kind of, with the minimal amount of time I have, I've been trying to, like, I think we're going to the Meet Your Maker event again this January.
Monday night, 13th.
There you go. That's really close. Okay.
That's Western.
So they, when I was talking to those folks, there's is it the association, the Farmers Association or Agricultural Association? Last year I was trying to say, hey, can you find, like, you guys do this, you have time, find me someone who's got an old mining company or someone who's got an old grader that I can grind up these, because there's Jats in the back of our space. Jats Landscaping is back at the part owners of the building that we occupy, and they'd be happy to have that thing perhaps in the back of their. I'm saying this now, they may not. You know, just the way my brain works is like we get them into it. We put a machine there, small enough. Shells are going in. They get grinded out. We can give that back to farmers who use that for feed, because farmers in Yukon now already import a product that has like very, very tiny oyster shells in it that chickens and other animals eat, because it has filled with calcium. It's very good for, anyway. So they're paying a lot of money for that, so it'd be a great way to offset some import kind of stuff. And then it's just, you're just taking that product, it's getting flown up here, there's some footprint there. You know, the packaging of some of that stuff is quite heavy. You know, we all, you know, recycle it and all that kind of stuff, and we do compost the shells, which goes into some great soil here in the city of Whitehorse. But there's one more thing you can always be thinking about, just, you know, maybe you're not buying it.
If you know anyone that needs 80 to 100,000 oyster shells next year, we'll
not right.
Yeah.
We'll look you up.
So now we can open it up to the audience. Does anyone have any questions they're curious about? Yeah.
How many oyster shells in December?
Oh, I know. You know what's going on.
I believe it's between 425 and 450.
Okay.
Isn't it?
No.
Is it 8?
825.
Sorry, it's 825.
Well, that's the number that she told us.
Okay.
And that for the first couple of months, in particular, if families would come in or people with children, like say, you know, you got your parents, and it's like, oh God, it's Christmas, we gotta talk to each other. So you're like, hey, here's a game. If you can guess the number of oysters and everyone gets a guess, you all get a free drink, or the kid gets a dessert or something. And that keeps a family occupied for an hour, and they had a good time. They don't hate each other when they leave, and it was amazing.
Yeah, you have it in the back there, and then after.
So, 2 questions, one quick one. When are the steaks coming back? Because that was the highlight of my year last year. And the second one, more serious, I guess, is you start a restaurant knowing that restaurants always take longer and cost more than you think. Like, how do you deal with that when you're like, this is how much I'm going to spend, and then it's going to cost you, you don't know how much more? How should you deal with that?
The first one.
No, I got the first one. First one was a great strike. So Mr. or John there, we had these 45-day aged ribeyes on the menu last year that Brian had, and he brought in a full section of it. They're from Hurlburt Farm, and they were being aged by Maddie. What's the name?
They're saying I know it.
I can't recall it's one of the businesses that's kind of trying to corral all the
Flat Creek.
Flat Creek?
Could be.
Yes.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So we had these 45-day aged ribeyes, and we had about 9 of them, and they were anywhere between 16 or 20 ounces each. So they're going for about $75 to $125 each. I was for sure they were going to be sitting with us for a couple of weeks. They were gone in a week.
3 days. 4 days.
4 days. Sorry. This lovely gentleman over here, he came and ate one by himself. So the thing just comes cooked with mushrooms. Sorry to call you out, but
he's asking for a reason.
I was actually off, and I sat down and I bought a bottle of wine so I could drink it with him. He gave me one. I didn't want to bite because I wanted to see him eat the whole thing. He did. I got one bite. Anyway, I think just as soon as Brian can kind of sort out, we've been having trouble kind of connecting with the right folks to kind of age that product. I mean, we kind of buy a bit of ourselves, but then we're taking a bit of risk. We're not all super knowledgeable of how that works. We're trying to get Bonton up in Dawson to kind of maybe, we could buy them a whole loin, but they're all over at capacity as well. I mean, they're trying to do their own thing, like, they have limited space, so when they can take the space, they're gonna use it for their own stuff, they can slice that up, make more profit that way, and they're gonna, that's their, you know, so it's totally understandable, but
Second question.
there you go.
Yeah, we had a budget on paper that I scoffed at originally, and then I was like, no,
And I was
it's
like,
not gonna cost that
I was
much.
like, no, it's gonna be fine.
And I'm like, no, this is what the number is gonna be. And we were pretty close to that, I'd say within 10% of that number overall. Again, we played within our means. You know, things that we wanted that we couldn't have, we just didn't do. We needed to make quality food in a safe kitchen, have as many seats as we could provide in an accessible building, and pour as much beer as we could into Yukon Mountains.
Yeah.
That's,
And
everything
then
after
also-
that, we figured out.
And also, like, for like the most part, and from little restaurant experience that I have as far as running one, is that from friends that I've, the mentors I'm talking to, and people I've worked for, restaurants' margins are small. You're gonna be in the 8 to 15% range, like that, and 15 is high, you know, like, you're gonna be somewhere in that 10, wicked, awesome. And I mean, with us, I mean, me, I've got my job that I'm kind of leaning on, that's what I do. But
We've obtained no income.
no, but
14 months into this business.
but
Don't
we're,
kid yourself. I'm living on my future and having a great time.
no, but there's other perks, you know. I mean, well, obviously we eat and drink for a smaller fee. There's a company credit card that's got a lot of points there that I've flown like lots of my family. He's used it a bunch of times. Those are other little things, other little gifts and the kind of kickbacks that kind of come in your way. Because the first and foremost is kind of get everything else paid off other than ourselves, which we're pretty close to, and then obviously take care of your staff, and then after that maybe everything else is just a bonus because we're really just having a lot of fun. I mean, it's definitely stressful at times, but I mean, look where we are right now.
Yeah,
Like,
it's ridiculous.
I couldn't believe this many people showed up. So I was like, I have no time on a Thursday night to even do this. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so normally on Thursday nights, he's home with his daughter because his wife has the brewery open for Summer Kombucha down in Industrial. So the fact that he's here is pretty impressive. There's more people here than there are in a restaurant right now.
Maybe. I don't know.
I think we should have hosted this on site.
Any other questions? Yeah, go for it. Go. In the back there.
How did you come up with the name?
Oh, that's a funny story.
you.
That's
Yeah,
another
how do
story.
you come up with the name?
So anything you see that's he doesn't like me to prop him up because
He's not watching.
he's too cool. But so anything you see that's like image-wise that we put out on social media or anything, or this logo, is a mutual friend of ours that I met in Ottawa. His name's Ryan Misha. He's a graphic designer in California. There's another part, I guess, about like the small business world is try to get anything you can for free, and treat those people very well. But I mean, graphic design and everything is very, very expensive, and like he lays out.
What have you paid
for
so
us.
far?
Nothing. When we go to visit him, we're gonna go
4
visit
years
him.
in without an invoice for any graphic design.
We're lucky he's very successful at what he does, and he offers his time up. It takes him 2 seconds, but I asked him for a name. I was floating around like, what about Drift Oyster Bar? Because like that's what I was catering, and I was like, I move around. And he's like, that's dumb. he just said, just call it Wayfarer, because like there's a bunch of places in the States that are called that. It's kind of got some. You're in the north. It's like if people actually read into it, they can find out, you know, a bit more meaning to it. And that's, yeah, it was basically just like my savvy Silicon Valley graphic designer. It was like, don't call me one.
New Brunswick boy by way of Buffalo,
Yeah,
who's a dually, so he could go to the States, and he's living in California on a winery and doing graphic design.
yeah.
And he's a degenerate, and I love him greatly.
There's really nothing that's, I mean, yeah, it's broad.
Yeah, I sent him a thing for an event we got coming up at the end of the month, and 20 minutes later he had 2 completely separate posters and options back to me from Mexico on vacation. I'm like, nice work. Yeah.
That's wicked. Yeah.
So when we were,
Sorry, right in front and then I'll come to you. Yeah, sorry.
So I just want to say I'm so proud of the 3 of you, and I've been there from way before the
Yes.
first time, but I was there on day 1 as well.
Yes, of course.
But I am regular. And
Also been known as to ring the bell. Gotta ring the bell.
Yeah, ring the bell, need to ring the bell. But I tell people all the time as I travel all the time, the #1 place to go, you have to come here, Wayfarer Oyster House, I can't believe it. But anyways, I was curious about one thing. So in December, the Yukon First Nations Tourism Association had an event, a feast event, with all these wild meats, moose, caribou, and rabbit and other things. So how come you guys or other restaurants can't do that?
Currently under Governor Yukon legislation and regulation, like I think all but Newfoundland and Ontario right now, you aren't allowed to procure and use wild game unless it's been donated and it's for an event, like the Wild Fish and Game Association can do that for their the Outfitters Ball, whatever the hell it's called. I know Tom Parent of Malin Cottage in Newfoundland. He sent his MP or MHA. It's like, hey, guys in Upalong in Toronto, mainlanders, are using bison or using moose in a restaurant in Toronto. It's like the fastest legislation to ever go through Newfoundland and Labrador, because they were not having the mainlanders selling moose when they can sell moose in his restaurant. We're actually meeting next week with a group to talk. They're just starting talking about that right now. How would that work?
It's like Michael Statlander in Ontario. He's been on it for, I mean, he's probably not on it these days, but when I was back in Ontario, like 10 years, 15 years ago, he was serving whatever he wanted at his restaurant. He'd get it fined and get shut down for a month, and he was just kind of continuously doing it because he was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, but the idea is, I guess, out in Newfoundland and other places, is the restaurant will get a tag. Like, that's kind of, we're trying to move towards that. You know?
Or the owner, like Andrew and I could go bag 2 moose. And as long as it's been an abattoir or it's been treated properly and someone checks it.
It's on the radar, because I mean it's something that we should be taking advantage of, not only for, I mean, it's locals for sure, but there's that, I mean, doing catering up in the Iqaluit, the first thing that I was doing Governor General lunches up there, and the first time you get dignitaries coming into town, the organizers are like, we need wild game. Yeah. So I have to go. But up there, I could call, you know, Jimmy or Tommy and say, I need a leg of caribou, because I got one in the freezer. Off it goes. It's all thawed out. Stew. Someone maybe got some mud tuck. Bang, bang, bang. But up here, it's not. It doesn't. It's that. That's
here's your 3 seals on a sheet of cardboard and a garbage bag. Let's get at it. Great time.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a longer conversation. But.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, Eric.
When we were in the planning and vision stage for our business, everyone said, plan for it to cost twice as much and take twice as long. And that's been remarkably close to what we're coming out of.
You guys good advice.
Yeah, well, so I heard you guys say you managed 10 or 15% of your budget. So
that's because the original number that we sat down with, I laughed at and said it's going to be 1.5 to 2 times that, and that we that was our new number. Time-wise, we wanted to be open in July was originally the goal, so a 6.5 month or 7 month.
We got open in November.
Then we got open November, skin of the teeth. We were fortunate to get open by then. I mean, our contractors, who you know well, were basically like ignoring other projects to help us get the door open.
Awesome.
To a certain extent.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, if you managed to get it in so close to your planned budget, what did you save on, and what's at the top of your wish list?
Yeah, so what you guys say, and I'm sure paying for that.
I worked really cheap. I worked for free and beer, typically, and we bought those. I bought those myself, so that really kind of cost me money to be there, which still happens a lot now.
Well, I mean, you have to think the space that was there before. A lot of it was, there's a mezzanine there that's done framework, drywall, taping, paint. There you go. The rest of it is pretty much us painting, ripping up that carpet, spending like a month or so grinding the concrete out. So it's just sweat equity, bit of rentals. I mean, we didn't have much to put in. I mean, there's fixtures, and then there's a bit of wainscoting, and then there's like a bit of trim. And
plumbing and electrical, things we can't do.
A little bit of plumbing that's like got 2 ice machines and the sink and the single cycle dishwasher. Like, we're having a conversation with restaurateur, so. But like,
you're in the bowels of it right now, so we get
just all these things that we didn't have to put in. You know, a lot of stuff. That was a decision of like
buying tables would have been nice. We have an option for capacity if we put in a second egress, because garage doors don't count.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. All of our wish list is contained on the other side of the pass.
Yeah.
Like the things that are wish lists are all related to Chef Brian and his team having a better time. That's where it's at. Everything else, you know, glasses are glasses. Here's your bourbon. Here's your pint glass. Oysters, here's ice. You know, we splurged on a really nice ice machine.
Yeah, we had to.
Yeah, we drove out. I mean, much as we try to spend local and what we talked about before, we did also fly to Edmonton and drive a U-Haul back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We drove one from Vermont, so.
Hi,
Go for it.
my name is Daniel, thanks for doing this. I was wondering what kind of advertisement you do, and if you had any advertisement where you realized that was a waste.
So what kind of ads did you do, and are there any ads that?
I'll always be like, well, word of mouth is great, especially in this industry, because you're like, I had a good time. You know, I mean, Google, I think it's really good to be up on how Google works, and then those reviews and like posting photos. Every once in a
Your
while.
SOEs work.
Yeah, making sure that all your stuff's up to
SEOs.
date.
I don't know, I always get it wrong.
Search engine optimization.
Yeah, SEOs.
Yeah, we haven't done too much as far as local print, just because we're still kind of new. Things have kind of come up as well. We're new, right? So everyone wants, hey, we do an interview, perfect. We'll get on, Dave White, gets us on the air once in a while. We get an interview maybe from Yukon News or the Air Canada thing kind of helps us out. I think there's another publication.
If I'd say we committed to 15-20% of the opportunities that were presented to us for local and national advertising. Social media works every now and then if there's an event or something you want to plug. You throw a couple bucks in, you pick your demographic. Over the year, the demographic is kind of shaped. We know who that is. Air Canada, that spurs on itself. That led to a whole bunch of the vultures that pick at Air Canada's carcass on this kind of event. And wanting to sell us everything from a range to the cover of a magazine. But everything is, hey, 10 grand, we'll get you this. It doesn't matter. We're in the hotels. The guy comes around and knocks on the doors about that kind of stuff. A couple of the other things, but mostly it was just we tried to build a restaurant for town. So if tourists found it, that's cool. But we're 48 seats, and if you're doing it right, there's a lot of people that go out here and spend money. You can fill 48 seats 7 months of the year. Go from there.
Yeah, I think it's also hard. I think there's other businesses that can benefit from a lot more advertising. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's a restaurant. If you're doing something, no one else does oysters, we're going to go there. I don't know, and then that word of mouth thing too. And we're also new, and it's.
And the size of the ad in the book does not correspond to the value and quality of the place you're going to go into.
But
It's that as well.
It's something that is always done to me. I don't really have asked around myself because I find it's kind of baffled at when do you start. Because most people that are offering print stuff, I'm always saying, I want you to come in. I want you to gladly schedule a meeting with me. I want you to show me how it works. Show me why I should be spending this money. And to this date, no one's actually taken the time to come and sit down and talk. Because I just want a little more buy this and see this many viewers. Like, really? Like, why? And I don't know. And it's a tough situation to put something in, but at least I don't see with social media and other kind of avenues. I see that, and everyone's on there. So I'm on there, so.
And we're 14 months in, right? We haven't shed our first skin yet, so we'll see. So we do this again in a year. We're like, oh man, we bought so much advertising.
Exactly.
We're sponsoring Trader Time now. Like who knows, right? But in the interim, we're getting a lot of. So I think just to say how word of mouth is spread. All but we had no one from Prince Edward Island and no one from Nunavut call in and buy a gift certificate for someone leading to Christmas. Every other province and territory, someone called and bought a gift certificate for someone here who's talked about it, or they've been here and experienced it. So you can't put a price on that. Someone calling in and taking the time of the day to throw $300 at a friend. That's pretty cool. I don't know how another ad or a sign on the highway fixes that.
Any other questions? As far as the experience, as far as the experience goes, is there anything that you would do differently now, looking back?
No, because we had no plan. I mean, as I said, man, it's pretty true. I know, and it seems silly to say to be an entrepreneurial speaker series and be like, there was really no plan. It was just a snowball. It was like, start this, and then we do this, and we do this. The right spot came up, very lucky, worked at it, pinched our pennies. We had a bit of momentum to work with. People knew who we were. As much as we want to pull each other's hair a bunch of the time, so we can still, at the end of the day, come back together and be like, okay.
There's a bit of a Waldorf and Statler vibe here.
But essentially, it's just kind of building on those steps. And then I don't know if we could do anything different. I mean, I'd love to have more avenues, like even when I didn't really, I wasn't in the government sector and I was still just doing the catering by myself, I was looking at some other, even the department I work for right now, and other places as well to kind of say, someone tell me, what are the steps to open a business? You know, do I need, like as far as there's a city license and then like environmental health permits, who am I talking to there? And then going through liquor permit, like thank God this guy was on our team to do that. I didn't have to do a single thing of getting our liquor permit. That was all to him, to his chagrin. But like, yeah, I wish there was a bit more of an avenue of someone to kind of walk you through. But then again, I say that, but every business is different. Everyone needs different needs and everyone needs different kind of steps. Every business has different steps. And this one has its own, and yeah, you just have to learn it on your own. It just takes a lot of dedication and a lot of time.
And
a lot of time.
The plan, it's true, we didn't really have a hell of a lot of a plan. We also didn't need a hell of a lot of a plan because we weren't beholden to anyone financially.
Yeah,
that makes a difference when, do we trust each other? We got our corporate agreement, we got a shareholder agreement, we have shotgun clauses, we spent all the money to make sure we were protected.
Yeah.
Well, hell, let's throw the chips on the table and see if this is gonna work out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, not having RBC or TD or BDC, you know,
breathing down your neck.
doing this and being like, I don't know, man, you don't have your floor on yet.
No, it's all on us and you know, a few close
you know,
full
a couple stern talkings too from my wife, but other than that, everything's been pretty good.
Are there any mentors or resources that you guys tap into?
Just yeah, my old boss Peter McCallum, he owns all those ones in Ottawa, and he's actually an ex-construction guy. But anyway, he's been a pretty good year to kind of get into
4 or 5 energy capacity, 12 places, maybe more.
Yeah, something like that for sure. I mean, Ottawa's a tough competitive market, and he seemed to tap into something. I mean, he inherited it from another group of guys who kind of started it up, and he's really expanded it. But as far as I can send him a spreadsheet here and there, and he goes, amazing. Or he goes, what are you doing over here? You know, I mean, someone who's in that restaurant industry in that much of a competitive area, yeah, he's definitely an 8 for sure. Other than that, you know.
Stumbling over ourselves into success.
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah.
So, and then if there's no more questions from, do you have no more questions?
I was just gonna say, who's the best bowler?
I win trophies, but he's probably better. You were there, John, you saw it.
For people who are in the restaurant industry now or are looking to jump in, what would your advice to them be?
Get out! Just kidding.
No, I mean, again, I'll go back to hat, right? This is a town that cycles a lot of cash. If you provide a quality product, if it's avocados in the restaurant or in the grocery store, or if it's a good massage therapy clinic or a CrossFit gym or this space or our restaurant, if you're providing something of quality and people see that, they will open their wallet and spend their money, have a good experience, and tell their friends. You know? My physio is because someone told me about it. You know, half the people come in the restaurant, someone had a good time, and they come in for their first time and say, so-and-so, do you know him? And then you always say, yeah, for sure, I know him. Oh, they did this and this. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. What do you want? It's kind of how it goes. I mean, this is a little kind of economic greenhouse we got here in Whitehorse in the Yukon that's shelter from a lot of the shit that's happening around this world, to be honest. And you need to take advantage of it, and sometimes when you're scared, you got to take a step back and be like, oh my God, this is happening in Toronto, and interest rates are doing this. Or like, Trudeau's not turning the tap off, man. The money is going to keep coming into this town. Figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
That was my job for 17 years. Make the money sticky. Make it stay here.
To be a little more specific, rent and labor will kill you in the end, and that's something I only just learned from just being with other places and other people. So, yeah, there's a 60% kind of magic number that if you can keep your food costs and liquor costs and labor costs, excluding a bit of overhead, to around that 60-65 number, then you're doing very good. So there's a lot of wiggle room, and at the same time too, like that was one of the biggest pieces of advice that this kind of mentor of mine gave me, for us, is, because I'm always definitely looking at numbers and always freaking out about them, is to don't look at them for the first couple of years. If you're bringing in the kind of numbers you are, don't look at, like, keep keep that labor up, keep those people paid well, and keep the product really, really exceptional for the first little bit, so that it can just continue to build. Because the first 3 years, you're going to have continuously more new people, other your return customers. That's where you need to build the bread and butter, and to not expect too much back from it. Just to pay everybody well, treat everybody well. That's the thing. And just know that you might not make some money for a while, but there's a purpose.
Any other final pearls?
There are probably more oysters left, and I would like to not bring any back to the restaurant. So we'll see you down there with fresh beers in a couple of minutes.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for coming. Thanks for taking the time, and thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Our Facebook page will be announcing the next Entrepreneurship Speaker Series, and then we look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you all. Get home safe and stay warm.